Hello, beautiful and magnificent beings. Welcome to Energy and Light Awakening. In today's session, we're going to be focusing on trauma and PTSD. But before we get into the session, I have a few things I'd like to discuss with you. I have a rather unusual experience to share with you. And this is another way I'm planning on expanding on the channel this year. From time to time, I'm going to share more information about my personal experiences, as strange as they may be. Because the one thing I've learned is the more you share, the more we grow and learn, and the less alone we feel. So before I tell you the story, there's 3 things I need to tell you. Now, if you've been with me for quite some time, you already know this, but there's a lot of new subscribers, and you may not know this yet, but for the last 15 years, I've been recovering from a major low back injury that has really messed up my entire body, but I don't want to get into that right now. I just need you to know I've been recovering for 15 years. So when this happened, after a year of dealing with many doctors and not getting anywhere, I could see I was going to have to take matters into my own hands. So I left the city and I moved out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And this is the second thing I need to tell you. About a month or so after living there, I felt not inspired but guided to start meditating. And this is something I've done on and off for years but never really stuck with it. And so I began to meditate every morning for 30 minutes. And maybe a month or 2 months after starting the meditation, I can't remember how long exactly, strange things begin to happen to me. And that still happens to this day when I meditate. And I'm still not 100% sure exactly what it is, but it has helped me heal not only my back, but in many other ways that I never expected. So, 13 years ago when I started meditating, one morning I kind of felt like I was moving, sort of like vertigo, or sometimes when you're standing and you feel dizzy, or like you're moving when you're not. It was kind of like that. And it kept happening the next day and the next day. And finally, I realized that my lower body, when I meditate, I sit on the floor with my legs crossed on pillows and prop myself up because I was contorted at a 90-degree angle. So I couldn't sit up or walk properly. So I noticed that my lower body was slightly wiggling, kind of like this. And I was like, okay, I don't know what the lower body was just like rocking and shaking. And I did not want to open my eyes because it was too terrifying. I mean, eventually it got to the point that literally like my arms would move. I could feel like an energy or a force that was kind of moving my body. And it got to the point that I was becoming used to it, even though it was a bit terrifying. And I mean, even sometimes like my hand or my fist, I would do these rhythmic tapping beats, and it just kept escalating. And even though it was frightening, the thing I noticed after 30 minutes coming out of the session, it would take me about 15 or 20 minutes to come back to my normal state. I started to feel better, like some kind of release was happening. It was helping me. So, like I said, it was a long road. It's been 15 years and I'm still not 100%, but I'm much better. So I did make a video on this in 2018, but I've since taken it down. So I've decided if this sounds interesting to you or you're having an experience like this, at the end of this video, I'm going to attach the audio so you can listen to it. And maybe it'll be more helpful for you or someone you know if you're going through this. So it's probably more accurate than what I'm remembering because, like I said, this started 13 years ago. So anyway, as this has been going on for years, as I begin to learn other things, it began to incorporate itself into the meditation as well, like light language and vocal toning. I never heard either one of those, but as soon as I learned about them, they started spontaneously happening while the movements or the shaking was going on as well. And one other thing I want to mention, I didn't know about this until about a year ago. I wrote this down. For those of you that might be experiencing trauma or PTSD, there's something called TRE, Trauma Release Exercise. And though mine was, it was happening naturally, the TRE teaches you how to put your body in certain positions where it will start shaking on its own. Like, you know how sometimes if you're straining a muscle, the body will shake? And this helps release a lot of trauma. So I would highly recommend, I'm going to put a link to one of the best videos I found on it below. So I highly suggest looking into this if it's the least bit interesting or you feel guided toward it. So back to the shaking. At first I thought maybe it was Kundalini Kriyas, but the only thing about this, because I was going crazy trying to find information, but at that time, 13 years ago, the internet and YouTube are not what they are today. And so I couldn't really find much information. And the very few people, like, I think there might have been 2 or 3 people I approached with this. And they either looked at me like I was a crazy person or they thought I was making this up or lying, which I can't imagine why anybody would do that. So I shut that down and just didn't tell anyone else about it. And so what little bit of information I did find out, some people are saying that when the Kundalini Kriyas happen, they had no control over it. Like, it would happen sometimes when they were sleeping or awake, but the body would start shaking and there was no control. But that's not the case with me. Like, I can stop at any time or I can just relax and allow it. So I kind of dismissed that maybe that's what it was. Again, like I said, to this day, I'm still not sure what this is. It is such a blessing because it has healed me in so many ways, not only my muscles and bones, but I have released so many deep, dark memories and trauma that was causing me all kinds of physical and mental pain that I didn't realize that was buried in my body. So I started looking forward to doing this. And okay, the third thing that I need to bring up, gongs. For some reason, since discovering sound healing, I've heard amazing things about gongs as well, and I believe this. But over the period of years, every time I would hear a gong or be around, like, I would immediately, to say I was uncomfortable is an understatement. I would feel a tightness in my chest and I would start to freak out and panic. It's like I had to get away from it. Or if I was able to shut it off, if I couldn't, I would just get the hell away. So hopefully, as I'm sharing this, the main story I want to share with you, it won't sound quite as crazy once you understand a little bit about my history and background. So about a week ago, well, actually on and off over the years, gongs would somehow find their way back into my life and I would block it out. And it's been many years, so I completely forgot about this until recently when I made one of my 5-minute healing hands videos. Gongs have slowly been appearing in my life again. And I was kind of on my guard without realizing or knowing why. And the one included in my video, like it was so calm and mellow, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. And so I got the idea to use this in one of my morning meditations. Oh, and so also for the last 2 months, I have been fasting twice a week, intermittent fasting. And this is an amazing thing I would highly suggest you to look into as well, because I've noticed that it helps with the awakening process. Like it puts me into kind of a heightened state of consciousness. And it just makes release and moving forward and energy movement much easier and less harsh on the body. So a few days ago, I was getting ready for my morning meditation, and I decided I was going to play those mellow gongs that I used in the video. So once I started meditating, again, my body starts to kind of rock and shake. And I started getting flashes in my mind of Mayan people, that civilization, and I saw the pyramids, and all of a sudden I started speaking this bizarre light language and a really strange voice. I didn't even know my voice could sound like that. And so I began this weird rhythmic tapping on my chest, and I'm guessing or assuming I was being shown a picture, because my guides have been communicating with me through pictures and flashes like that. So I could feel the energy coming through me when I started speaking that language, so I knew I was safe. And all of a sudden I had a flash of myself in 1994 in my bedroom in Northridge, California. And I had completely forgotten about this, but I was obsessed with a particular CD. I always slept with some type of therapy music at that time, even before I realized how healthy it was for you. And I think it was called Inner Space or Sounds of Outer Space, something like that. And I didn't realize it, but that CD was gongs. I was receiving a sound healing without even realizing it. And I didn't know about sound healing at that time. I just thought it was, really cool, interesting audio. I loved it so much. I listened to it every night when I slept, and sometimes I played it in the day. I just could not get enough of this thing. And then it hit me. I realized why all these years I have not been able to listen to gongs. The night that CD was playing was the Northridge 1994 earthquake. And I was usually up between 3 and 4, sometimes 5 in the morning at that time. I didn't go to bed until really late. And I was there by myself, except for one roommate and her boyfriend had gone to bed early. And I think the earthquake hit about 4:30, so I hadn't been asleep that long when all of a sudden, literally right before the earthquake hit, there was a force that yanked me up out of the bed into the middle of the room. Like, when you see those vampire where they're lying flat and they just kind of stand up straight? It was like that. And the minute I was in the center of the room, the earthquake hit and threw me down on the ground. Like, I could not get up off my knees, and there was stuff whizzing by my head. And so I was crawling over to the doorway, and I finally got out. I crawled out to my roommate, and I was screaming and pounding on her door so loud, and I couldn't hear myself. And finally, her door opened, and the three of us were like huddled in the doorway. It felt like it was never going to stop. And I'm not even sure if I knew what was happening. So once it stopped, the three of us were able to get outside. And I remember getting out to the front yard and just falling down on my hands and knees and looking up at the sky. and thinking, what is going on? And remembering it was one of the most beautiful skies I had ever seen. And all of a sudden, just to the right of my vision was a huge explosion, like all this fire and smoke went up. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? It's the apocalypse. Also at that time, I was really paranoid because I was just getting into conspiracy theory, which we're seeing a lot of this today. So I was just sitting there, oh Jesus, what is going on? There's a bit of a blackout period because I don't remember what happened from that time until 10 or 11 the next day. In the morning, the light came up and we were all in the living room because it was right next to the door. A friend of mine came over to see if I was okay, and we thought, let's drive around and check it out. Oh my God, it was trauma after trauma after trauma. First, the earthquake. I also had a pet that died in the earthquake. And that earthquake, driving around, seeing the destruction was just a whole new level of trauma. It's definitely one of my top 3 worst traumatic events. And I had to go home. I couldn't take it. Like I couldn't stop shaking. And this is the odd thing. Remember I told you about how I felt a force that pulled me up while I was sleeping? Well, I went back to the house, and when I tried to get in my room, the door was blocked. I could not get in. Luckily, the house was on 1 level. So I had to go around and break into the window to get in my room. And at that time, I had a lot of bookshelves all around the room, just all the way to the ceiling, and a desk. And I don't know why, but I was going through this weird phase where I was keeping my mattress and box springs on the floor. Like I did not want a regular setup. And so those bookshelves and the desk, everything had fallen on top of each other in the center in perfect alignment on top of each other. And like I said, I had to break through the window to get into the room. And if I had been in bed when that happened, either I would have been seriously injured or I might have been killed because those bookshelves were heavy. And if it had landed on my head, it would have been over. So we spent most of the days trying to clean up, but the aftershocks were so bad, we couldn't really do much. Like we couldn't put things back on the shelves. The aftershocks were so bad, it felt like small earthquakes. And this kept happening like every 30 minutes, every hour for weeks. And literally people in the neighborhood pitched tents on their front lawn, and it was like a huge block party because people were too terrified to go back into their homes. The aftershocks were just so violent. So back to my gongs. So I didn't realize that's why I was so terrified every time I heard them. And also, I didn't realize for years I was suffering from PTSD. I didn't even know about it, or I needed help, or I could get help. I knew I was terrified at night. I couldn't go to sleep after the earthquake. Like I would do whatever I had to do to stay awake all night. And as soon as the sun came up, I would fall asleep on the couch by the door. But even to this day, I still cannot go to sleep without a nightlight. A pitch dark just terrifies me. So all of this came up and flushed over me like a huge release, but it wasn't the usual purge. Like I didn't feel sick or nauseous or tired or anything. It just felt like such a release, like acknowledging it and letting all of that go with that strange light language I was channeling. And it just cleared everything out. So I wanted to share a trauma video for a long time. There's actually something really heavy I'm working on right now, but I can't share it until I get through this. So there will be another one coming up. So I at least wanted to share this story, and I'm hoping that maybe it will inspire you to start meditating and And I know it's not for everybody, but just find the one that works for you, and maybe try to work with gongs as well. And I just wanted to overall say what has happened to me. This is something you can do as well. It's not like this is just all special thing happening to me. We all are unique, but you can heal yourself as well. There's always tools and things to use, but you're still doing it, work through it. And again, connecting with your higher self. I know a lot of you come to me with problems and ask me questions, and I'm very happy to help and assist with that. But it's important that you know everything I'm doing, you can do as well. And it's even more powerful when you do it yourself, to connect to that divine presence or whatever it is you believe in. Just know that all of this, probably something completely, you'll have your own unique experience. So I hope the story has inspired you. I know I never talked this much, so if you're still with me, I really appreciate it. Okay, so as we begin this Reiki session, I'm not going to do any talking. I would like you to make yourself as comfortable as possible and just focus on the gongs that are going to be playing in the background. I want you to fully immerse yourself and experience and just see what comes up for you. In this Karuna-ki Reiki session, we're going to be using the following symbols. Zonar. Zonar is used to heal painful memories and traumas and emotional scars in both the past and the present. The hearth symbol is of love, compassion, and empathy. It reveals feelings of care, protection, and empathy towards others. The third symbol is Rama, a symbol of balance and equilibrium. The Rama-ki Reiki heals mental trauma by removing and clearing negative energy. And the last symbol, Halu. Halu is used as a safeguard for preventing harmful energy from entering the mind and the body. So just take a gentle breath in, and we are going to do this for 5 minutes. Take a gentle breath in and just slowly allow yourself to come back to your regular state of consciousness. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Take as much time as you need. Thank you so much for joining me today. Highest blessings and infinite gratitude. Sat Nam. Hello, you beautiful and magnificent beings. I'm Planet Nietzsche, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to discuss my own personal experience with Kundalini Kriyas. This is not a video I particularly wanted to make, but I know the importance of it, and my guides have been nudging me to make it. So if this is something you're experiencing, don't freak out. I'm gonna go through a little bit of mine with you. If you feel free to ask questions or send me an email. My Kundalini Kriyas started about 7 years ago. And before that, I had a very traumatic back injury, which I believe is the catalyst for this. And the main reason I wanted to make this video is because when this started happening to me, I looked everywhere for information. I didn't exactly know what was going on, but I knew it wasn't anything bad. I sort of knew, but not really. And I searched for years, high and low. I couldn't find any information. And the very few people that I felt comfortable enough to ask, with a lot of apprehension still, looked at me as if I were crazy. Or lying or both. And so I just shut down and decided not to discuss it with anybody. And eventually I just gave up looking for information. I couldn't find anything. And so this has been going on, or still goes on actually, and it's continually changing. Now when it first started, I've heard some people talk about how it was very violent and rough. Fortunately for me, it started very gentle, but like I said, I had a traumatic back injury, which is why I think it was so subtle. And it was just a very gentle movement, and I felt like I was actually moving before it happened, and then eventually when it started to happen, I would not open my eyes. I did not want to see my body flailing around like that. And so I let this go on, and the first bit of advice I should give you is try to relax as much as possible and do not hold your breath. That was a huge mistake for me, because I would just tense up and hold my breath, which made it very uncomfortable and difficult to move. But as soon as I realized I was doing this, I was able to relax. And when I stopped holding my breath, I naturally started breathing a breath of fire, which if you're not familiar, that just means you breathe in very quickly through your nose. It's also yoga breath. So I let this go on for years. Occasionally I would try to look and see if I could find something new on the subject. I could not find anything. It has changed over the years. It has helped me so much recovering from my injury. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you notice that normally I only shoot from the waist down or the waist up. I have finally recovered. This is going to be another video. I was able to recover even though 10 or 11 different doctors told me it wasn't going to happen. And I am straight again, because originally I was contorted at a 90-degree angle to the left. And now that I'm straight again, my muscles are still a little bit contorted. So I'm working on straightening those out and getting back to normal. So if you always wondered why I only shoot from here up, now you know. So anyway, back to the Kundalini Kriyas. They have helped me so much with this injury. It just basically loosened up a lot of the trauma, the physical, also mentally and spiritually. It has done so much for me. So I know it can be a little scary in the beginning, but just try to relax and just let it do its thing. Number 2, do not stop doing it. This was another huge mistake. After several years, I kept thinking it was leading to something, which I still believe I know it is.
But for whatever reason, I didn't really feel like I was getting anything out of it. I didn't feel like I was making any progress, so I decided to stop doing it. And I think this went on for about a year. Huge, huge mistake. Do not do this. All kinds of problems. Towards the end of that year, I was just mentally a complete mess. Physically, everything started to reverse. I started to get worse again. I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I was just emotionally drained and I couldn't handle. So for whatever reason, one day in meditation, I decided to just let it happen again. And the next 3 or 4 days, it shook the hell out of me. Like everything was flailing. But it was such a relief. I mean, after about 30 minutes to an hour, I literally just fell over on the floor crying and laughing because it was such a huge release and relief for me, just letting all that built up energy out. So yes, number 2, do not try to stop it, control it. Just let it go its course and you should be fine. I am going to list some videos or some channels below that for you to check out. Hopefully will help you. I think one of them, I think his name is Mystic Eye. He talks about his experience and he actually shows footage, which really surprised me. I don't feel quite that comfortable, but I think it's great that he did this because you can kind of see how his body was reacting if you're having that experience or something similar. So I think that's great that he put that out there. I'm really glad he did. Peculiar Daughter also is another one, and Victor Odo. I highly recommend those 3 channels. I think they will be very helpful and more beneficial. This will get you started, but they talk more detail about it. So I hope this video finds you well. If you are going through this, feel free to ask me any questions, and good luck. I wish you well, not that you will need it.